So the main thing that excites me about NLP in the field of NLP and its impact on personal development is that NLP is a developmental model. And we realised that about 8 or 9 years ago, that with NLP, even the field didn't realise that what it had was in and of itself a developmental model. And for us, it's the missing piece in the developmental, in the field of human development. It's the missing piece of the puzzle, because NLP shows us how we construct and represent reality for ourselves, and therefore how we facilitate the need to motivate ourselves, to drive ourselves, to will ourselves. And so it's really the modelling the structure of will, and really there's not another part of the field of human development that really gets will. And so it is the missing piece of that, because other parts of development know that we have a representational structure that we call the self. NLP shows us how that self was constructed and is indeed maintained. So when we're playing with deconstructing and reconstructing the self, we started to realise, hold on, NLP's actually got the ability to map the whole self structure, that a person grows up, that they then struggle through time, that they then frustrate and annoy and hold themselves back from their absolute potential. That is the one thing. So we don't do pride, because it's not about us. And yet we've had many successful students be successful, and success, let's look at it as a nominalisation. So it's not real, but by their own standards and by their own experience, they'd say they were hugely successful as a result of that. So we work with some of the most impactful global leaders all around the world, in all kinds of fields. In mining, we've had CEOs that have led mining organisations to be more economically, environmentally, and people-based sustainability, to create a workplace of 45% women, which transformed the whole culture of the organisation. And that culture then outlasted him leaving and going and taking over a new mine, and now maintains itself in the face of and actually spat out somebody that didn't fit within its cultural structures. That's how strong the culture was, and that's 3, 4, 5 years after he's moved on. That culture is still maintaining itself and enculturating and awakening and developing every human being within that mine. And so from there to sporting organisations, we work with Waratahs Rugby, we work with Red Bull, Formula One racing, the Verstappen team. So we're having impacts all over the place. And then we have students come through our NLP and through our MetaCoach training system that are leading in the field of coaching, leading in the field of career coaching, leading in the field of leadership development, leading in the field of life coaching, leading the fields of different aspects of human development. So we've got hundreds of people out there doing extraordinarily amazing things. That's got nothing to do with us. It just so happened that they found their sense of purpose and their sense of drive and their sense of intentionality with us. But you see, they are Don Lockett, not us. Look, it really simply, the movie rewind pattern, and also known as the phobia cure pattern. And the reason it's my favourite pattern is it reveals to us that all experience, internal experience, all memory is purely constructed and can be absolutely deconstructed, so therefore it's not real. And it certainly is only representative of us and our potential, so it can never actually be our potential. So by transforming and releasing ourselves from past experiences, past events, past memories, post-traumatic stress disorder events, phobia events that hold, maintain and haunt us, To release ourselves from that facilitates absolute self-actualization. The simplicity of that pattern is that it does its work in about a 10-second time frame. So over a 10 seconds, a human being can transform their whole way of being and release themselves into their potential by releasing themselves from the anchor that's holding them back in life. And so revealing that you know the structures that hold us back are wholly unnecessary, and we don't need to hang on to them. And so releasing ourselves from that is a really simple and yet absolutely profound experience. Well, there is very simple, and so in Buddhism there's a thing called a terma. A terma is an aspect of reality where it's like a doorway into a house. Seems as though from the outside you can tell what's going on the inside in terms of its capacity, its space. You can tell what's going on by looking from the outside. You can tell the size, the space, the capacity on the inside. It seems as though that's the case, but like the Doctor Who's TARDIS, when you get inside, the inside goes on forever, in fact infinitely. And so a terma is something that looks really, really simple, but yet has depth and complexity that could keep you going on a journey or through an unfolding process for your entire life. One of those examples is Fritz Perls' awareness is curative. Now the depth in that, because we're looking, it's a simple global statement, but yet the depth in that is nothing occurs without awareness. And so now awareness of what is my self-structures, what are my habits, where do they come from, how do they still operate, what's the intentionality behind them, what's the drive behind them, what's the personality structure that is structuring and operating that is immense. So you could go on for a lifetime. In fact, you would need to go on for a lifetime to get in behind that and fully see, expose and appreciate the complexity of the human self. As in the small self, the structure. And so that one, awareness is curative, for me has led to a decade and a half long investigation, and I'm only just starting to get into, you know, who I am that I'm not. Our vision as an organization is that you know we are able to begin the process of ending human psychological suffering that is unnecessary psychological suffering. That human psychological suffering isn't necessary. Physiological suffering is a given. But psychological suffering is in a day-to-day suffering, in terms of dissatisfaction, in terms of, you know, dislike of self, in terms of dislike of life, right, leading to suicide, leading to depression. It's wholly unnecessary in our view. And so our vision is to start a fire within our community, not a literal one, but start a fire in our community that awakens people to the potential of who they are rather than who they take themselves to be, so that they can go out there and make a difference. Now, from a corporate leadership perspective, self-leadership is leadership, yeah? And so self-leadership is self-development. So it's clearing, you know, all of the stuff out the way that isn't serving me as a human being, to enable me to do what I know how to do, but I am not doing because my structures are in the way. You know, having the conversations I absolutely need to go and have, but aren't, because I'm afraid of the conflict that they'll create. I'm afraid of what people will think about me and how I'm seen and perceived and what that will mean for the opportunity. Stops me from leading. Leaders and the 1,000 leaders that I've coached, there is one truth that runs through all of them. They know what to do, they just aren't doing it. So our approach is to free them to facilitate them freeing themselves more aptly, and in that to allow them to do what they know how to do, to awaken that within others, the possibility of them freeing themselves. And so that's leadership. It's going first. It's clearing my stuff out the way so I can facilitate you clearing your stuff out the way so that you can get on with doing what you need to do. Instead of the egocentric drive to be seen, to be loved, to be respected, all that shit gets in the way. So clearing that stuff out, and that's what we do in a corporate sense. We work with organisations, we work with CEOs, we work with their executive teams to help them actually come together as a team and actually team together. Teaming, yeah, and begin to lead as an individual team rather than a team of individuals. Now, then we flow into the public side. Well, we're doing that on a person-by-person basis, but on a large scale. We do that in Sydney, we do it in Brisbane, we do it in Melbourne, we do it in Hobart. We're going across to Auckland now to do that work, and then we're heading over to Singapore and expanding our organisation as fast as we can with the resources that we have. And so, ours is to make a global difference to high-performance leaders, to high-performance sports people and high-performance sporting teams.
And then the side effect of that is clearing cultures.
Right.
Whole cultures being cleared.
Whole teams, whole organisations, whole cultures, countries. So one of the organisations we work with extensively, Fiji Airways, is leading us into all kinds of places in Fiji. There is a nation there which is transforming through the work that we're doing together with them in partnership, and a small but fledgling nation that is transforming and freeing itself in the face of the work that we're doing together. And the openness and the willingness is beyond anything I've experienced in any place, in any country, with any organisation. The transformation there is exceptional. They have an extraordinary CEO who is leading in a way that I've never seen CEOs lead before. Because he is working on him. How do I apply it? Really, the question is, how do I not apply it? Because that would be the exception. So, in having this conversation, in allowing myself to express fully the voice that wants to cut through, that wants to communicate, that has something to say. Is always there. So I apply NLP in every aspect of what I do, and NLP is a communication model. Let's get that really clear. That NLP doesn't exist. It's a communication model. It's a model that models how human beings communicate with themselves, and then project out into the world and project out into reality in different ways. So and then works with those projections. So as a communication model, it shows how we take the world in, represent it in mind. That mind then facilitates an emotional mind-body emotional state experience, which then grounds all that representational meaning into our physiology and neurology, and then helps us overlay that and language that so we communicate it with other people. So the communication that's going on the inside is creating the representations that filter how I receive you and what you're trying to communicate with me. So now the meaning structures I make out of your communicating then have an impact on how I communicate back with you, so that there's a dynamic interplay. So there's not a part of that process that I'm not constantly seeing and trying to work on and release myself from, where there are structures that arise and stuff that comes up which isn't working for me and isn't working for you in relating with me. So there is no space or area where I'm not applying that. Yeah, but that's what you're looking at is 15 years of somebody who's worked with this every single day of their lives. It takes intentionality, it takes an immense amount of commitment and energy to constantly look at yourself and then we've got a community of people doing the same thing, thousands of people out there who are doing the same thing. So integral leadership is a process that we have evolved over the past decade and a half together, Joseph and myself, in the leadership work that we've done, in the work that we've done personally and professionally on ourselves, and particularly Wilbur's programs, Almus's work, particularly the field of NLP and neurosemantic NLP through Michael Hall's developmental coach training work, Integral Coaching Canada and the work we've done with them. We've really pulled together. Joseph's really led this. He's spent a decade and a half in the area of leadership, executive leadership, developmental coaching, and so our integral leadership is a series of 5 one-day programs which look at all aspects of leading. So commencing with the self in leadership, and that is the self structures where we look at Enneagram. And we look through the lens of Enneagram at personality structure within people, the structures that hold a leader back from doing what they know how to do, from being the leader that they know that they can be but aren't, by clearing out all of the self-beliefs, the self-values, the identity structures that run them habitually. And so that have them get themselves in the way, and to get yourself in the way is quite simple. It's I wanna say this, and I know it's the right thing to do, but I know if I say this that I'll be seen as potentially as a troublemaker. I'll be seen as someone who isn't a team player. I'll be seen, and that could cost me my job. And that fear stops me from taking action, only later to come back and literally bite me on the bum, and then I go about beating myself up for the next 3 months about what I didn't say, and these structures are all running through us. How I'm seen and perceived, my fear of loss, my fear of stop me from stepping up with cost response, being willing to pay the cost of my response in the world, and stand up for who I am versus who I'd like to be seen as. Now, really doing that work of clearing is just one day of the workshop, enables me to then connect, relate and communicate more effectively with others. So now I need to be able to, in the dynamic interplay of working with others, once I've got myself out the way and I can see my structures arising as they arise, and choose to take action anyway, to pay the cost of my response in the world. Now I'm going to need the skills, communication skills, dynamic relationship skills, to be able to approach conflict situations in a very, very different way, where I stop putting myself and personalizing, your viewpoint of me. I refuse to get hooked by the frames that you're throwing out and offering as we work through together what would be just a normal conflict situation of, well, I don't agree, I think we need to do it this way. Yeah, so you go, I don't agree, I think we need to do it this way. I'm going to go, so, all right, I don't agree, but I am interested in how you've arrived at that perspective. Would you mind sharing that with me? How you've arrived and what your thinking is behind this decision? Because I don't understand it, but I'd like to. I'd like to see it from the way you see it. Could you convince me, show me, share it with me? And now, it's a different way of communicating, a different way of being for a leader. That's just day 2. We have then vision and creating a leadership team, organizational vision that gives not only me, but gives all of our people clarity, meaning, purpose and intention. And so creating really high quality, meaningful decisions is an art form. And very, very few organizations and very, very few people can actually understand how to create something that's meaningful until it becomes obvious that they're missing it. Yeah, and the obviousness of missing it is in the lack of actual engagement not as measured by a survey, but the lack of actual engagement by people in giving themselves and committing fully and completely to the work that they're doing in every moment that they're doing it. Yeah, so that they cannot not do it. Now getting up in the morning, now, doing the work you need to do, it's no longer hard. Yeah, I mean, I haven't worked in years. I work most of the time 6 or 7 days a week. I work 12 hours a day. Sometimes I'll coach 10, 11 people in a day. People say, that must be tiring. Well, it's not, because I know where we're headed. I know what my purpose is. I absolutely rock solid clear about what we intend to do and why we're doing it, and so the work becomes an expression of that drive within me, and so now I cannot not do it. It's just there. So no, it doesn't cost me energy. It gives me energy. Quite the opposite, actually. Integral leadership is looking at myself as a leader, looking at ourselves as a team, understanding where we are, and understanding not only where we want to be, where we want to go, where we want to head, but what stops us from getting there, and how does the maintaining of the status quo hold us back from the potential of where we know we can go, and then unlocking and unleashing that, and then creating a tipping point within the organisation to actualise that. From a leadership perspective. And so, that 5-day program is revolutionary in terms of it isn't teaching you anything. You are discovering within yourself the truth of what is stopping you from absolutely unleashing, unlocking and actualizing your potential, so that you can go do that for yourself. And there isn't anything like it. And we've worked with organisations like Fiji Airways. We've worked with organisations like Red Bull Formula One Racing, the Verstappen team. We've worked with organisations like the Department of Defence, in like Beiersdorf, who own the brand Nivea, in John Deere, people like that, in releasing themselves to their full potential. As an individual leader, as a team of leaders, and as an organisation of people, to truly go about serving their clients in a very different, more effective, pragmatic way. So the biggest trap I found in my experience, from a personal perspective, has been what Chogyam Trungpa refers to as a spiritual materialism. And that is, I now become attached to being a developed human being. So do you see, I've done enough. And the unfolding of a human being is unending. No matter where you are, no matter where you're at, no matter how successful you are, no matter how much you've achieved, there is more work to do. So, this really became obvious to us when we started working with celebrities. And the interesting thing was, we found in working with celebrities that there was a frame in there that I've achieved, so much. I've done all the work I need to do. I don't need to work on myself anymore, until a train crash occurred. And then there was a realization that maybe I do need to look at some stuff that I haven't looked at. And so people will often wait for reality to reveal to them their limitations. And that is their limitation. What occurs for them is they're waiting for reality to unintentionally develop them, rather than leaning, and this is true for me too, rather than leaning into intentional development, intentional evolution of me as a human being. That we ain't got long. Life passes us like that. I turned 50 the other day, and I'm sat back going, 50? How the fuck did that happen? But it happens. And so we ain't got long. And my realization has been that, I wasted, I would say, the majority of my life where I could have been giving it, myself to my unfolding and my development, and it flies by. Did I truly give myself to unfolding myself to the real potential I have? Where did I hold myself back? Where did I say no to that speaking opportunity? Where did I say no to that coaching opportunity? Where did I say, no to taking on something that would really have stretched me? Well, my life's filled full of that. Yeah, and I'm all good with that. I've made peace with those moments. But they're the moments where we truly hold ourselves back from really unleashing ourselves, as Michael Hall says. And so that is the single biggest thing that limits people's potential, in my experience, and certainly for me has been.
So, just off camera or on camera or whatever, like in my experience, coming in here and learning like these lenses to observe the construct and the constructed self that gets in the way, there's a whole lot more of that is being seen that never used to be seen, and now that that's being seen, for me it's like, well, that's just the construct. That's what's trying to clear. That's what I'm trying to clear, and then So, for example, like I want to start a business, but it's very clear that it's coming from a constructed space, and then after that it goes, when like the move is like, well, that's constructed, so I'm just gonna ignore that. Is that spiritual materialism?
Yeah. Because do you see where you're free to see that that's a construct and play with it anyway? You're absolutely free. Do you see?
Yeah.
And so, yes, it is, because creating a business is constructing a future reality, a vision for what it is you're going to go about creating in the world, in reality. So you're making it up before you go and make it up. Yeah, but here's the thing: can you see that it's all made up anyway, and go and make it up the way you want it? Go and make it unfold in taking responsibility for your four powers: what you think, feel, say, and do. And go influence other people to get behind and to fully support what it is you're doing, to the point where they're your fan base helping you make it happen, that you have a community of people around you that are so intentional about helping you create your vision that it cannot not come to fruition. Not maybe in the way you hoped it would, but in the way it does come to fruition, because they're always going to be different. And so, there's nothing wrong with constructing. The question is, do you know you're doing it? And if you know you're doing it, carry on. Carry on and do it. But do it with volition. Do it on purpose. So we know that our vision of ending unnecessary psychological suffering is a vision for the whole of humanity. Yeah, to touch enough people to get a tipping point across the globe of human beings to start a fire through humanity is our vision. That humanity as a species of people is able to go and find its potential and have a bloody future. Because right now, we don't. We have a disaster coming. An economic disaster, an environmental disaster, and it's because of our psychology, our unwillingness to look at ourselves. So we're about touching people and awakening them to the truth of what's really going on in them, so that they can free themselves from it and get on with it. Get on with leading all the other people on this planet out of the sleepedness that they're in right now. And so it is a vision that we hold, and it's we understand that it's not real, but we still hold it anyway as a possibility.